Have we reached a breaking point? Time will tell.
Good morning, Trumptopia. A special segment of the almost daily ZenCast. Hosted by the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Let's talk Trump.
Greetings and salutations, friends. Hello and namaste. It's Wednesday, May 10th, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I've been off the air for a hot minute or three because I have just been at a loss for words. The escalating gun violence, the political shenanigans, the debt ceiling issue, all the craziness. And on top of it all, we have the tumultuous shenanigans of dear old Donald Trump. We seem to have come to a nearly full circle moment, friends. Remember when that audio tape came out? Was it, I forget the name of the show. It's the show I didn't watch very often, but that entertainment variety show caught Donald Trump in a hot mic moment, waxing philosophical about his implicit ability to sexually assault women without consequence. At the time, back in the day, when that audio first came out, it was dismissed as a hoax, a deepfake, and all kinds of other rationalizations were used to excuse it. It hung there as a sort of, is this the straw that will break the camel's back for a while, and then just got swept up in the tumultuous cacophony of crazy. But here we are, just days after a jury of Trump's peers have found him guilty and ordered him to pay $5 million in restitution to one of his victims. Now, the craziest bit about all of this isn't that he refused to appear in court. I kind of expected that from him. In fact, my big question right now, when we're hours away from this big CNN town hall that was established and scheduled long before the court case came to fruition, my big question is, will he show up tonight? I'm kind of secretly hoping he bails, because I think that will just be yet further evidence of his cowardice. But who knows? Maybe he will show up and do what he usually does, which is use the platform to propagate the lies he was unable and unwilling to say in court. This is one of the most consistent patterns about Trump himself and his cacophony of supporters, is that they will say whatever nonsensical claims they want to make on TV. But when it comes to repeating those statements in court, they somehow manage to not do that. I mean, we've lost count of how many court cases, right? But in the 60 plus that he lost over the election issue, they said all kinds of things in front of cameras, which they were then unable to provide as evidence in court. So here we are. I was saying the most amazing, crazy, phenomenal part of this most recent case that he lost wasn't that he refused to show up, but rather the things he actually said in his deposition, under oath. The hilarious bit where he confuses his own wife with his accuser was wild, right? Like, he's literally being he's really exhibiting the dementia-like behavior that he constantly badgers, what's his name about? What is that? I just blanked on the other guy's name. By the way, for the record, I get a lot of pro-Trump supporters blindly accusing me of being a blind faith Biden supporter. I'm not. That's his name. That's the guy. I can't believe I forgot his name for a hot second there. But I didn't vote for Biden, and I've never blindly defended him. In fact, I have said on many occasions, if there's evidence, investigate them all, on all sides. So I just wanted to state that for clarity, because I get a lot of strangers on the internet who have not bothered to listen to my podcast, projecting all the usual boilerplate talking points that they get from their pro-Trump media outlets, accusing me of being a blind faith Biden supporter, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, no, I'm just a very adamant critic of Donald Trump, and I have my reasons, which I have elucidated in previous episodes. Speaking of which, I want to take a moment to talk about a technical issue going on with the podcast. And then we can continue to discuss the implications of this most recent court case and this finding against Teflon Don. He claims he's going to fight against it and appeal, but I don't think the Teflon's going to work this time. I could be wrong. He's got a long history of getting away with things. And then claiming that getting away with it means he's been exonerated. Those two things are not the same, folks. Okay, so this technical issue. Dear listeners, I might ask you, I kind of feel like asking you for your support in writing into Sprecher.com. Now, I have not had any issues with this platform. This is the platform that I use to create this podcast. I'm currently using the Sprecher.com app on my 6th gen iPad to create this and send it out to you all over the interwebs. Here's the technical issue that came up this week. I have been slowly migrating the segments, the special segments that are components of this podcast. As if those of you longtime listeners, you're familiar. Some of my episodes are cannabis talk episodes. Some of my episodes are today's nugget of Zen episodes. Some of my episodes are unauthorized and explicit reading episodes. And I have various segments, as I call them, that are, focused on particular subject matter or themes. And Good Morning Trumptopia is one of them. It's one of the original ones. It's one of the reasons I've been doing this podcast for as long as I have, because when I saw that Donald Trump was announcing to run for office, I said, whoa. I don't think that a lot of people realize that this dude, A, has been a Democrat for 30 years, 40 years, or whatever it was, and B, has a long history of being less than authentic, less than truthful, and less than sincere in his public discourse. But I digress. So I've been, for the longest time, all of these different segments of the podcast were all just part of the one show. And on Sprecher.com and the various platforms it distributes to, they would all get published under the umbrella name of the Almost Daily ZenCast. Sprecher.com allows an individual account holder to produce multiple podcast shows. And so after years of producing the show as one big disorganized mess, I thought it would be a good idea to spin off all the different segments into their own show so that listeners can find all the episodes unified by their themes and focus on those should they want to. And I'd been successfully doing that. If you go to Sprecher.com/user/Mr. Zeppo, you will see a menu of the different spin-off shows as I've been pulling them out. We've got CCT 420, Candid Cannabis Talk 420, which I'm still not super satisfied with the way I reorganized that name. But anyways, you'll see Squad Teamwork Guild Command Center Radio Briefings podcast, which is my gaming-specific Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 specific and guild organization specific podcast. That's where we talk about all the guild activities. That's the newest little spin-off thing. And you can also find the main branch, the Almost Daily ZenCast, as well as today's Nugget of Zen and unauthorized and explicit readings. About 2 days ago, maybe 3 days ago now, I gathered all the Good Morning Trumptopia episodes and republished them as their own show. And yesterday, I was getting ready to go on the air to do this episode I'm doing now, and I was shocked to discover that the Good Morning Trumptopia show was just gone, disappeared, and no longer accessible, either on the public-facing side. If you were to go as a listener to Sprecher.com/user/Mr. Zeppo, you would not find Good Morning Trumptopia, nor on the internal side on my dashboard in my control panel. So I wrote to the Creator Success Team help in the built-in chat assistance thingy, and I had a conversation that's spread out over a day and a half now about the podcast. The individual assisting me has been very nice, very supportive, and they've reported back to me that the incident is being looked into, and apparently yesterday they reported to me that apparently when I moved all those episodes, they were flagged as being in violation of terms for the platform, which was odd to me just at first hearing that, because most of those episodes have been up for years on the platform. I pressed for further information, and they said it looks like they were flagged as being all music episodes, which is categorically untrue. Now, back in the day when I first launched the podcast, there was no rule on the Sprecher platform about publishing music-only episodes. So really old school listeners might remember there was a time when you would come across episodes that were just 3 or 4 tracks of music or one really long track of music. Some of those were the most popular episodes ever at the time. In those moments, they were some of the most popular episodes I had. Now, eventually, at some point, Sprecher.com changed their rule and said you can only use music as part of the show. You can't just publish music tracks. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'll adjust to that. Although I was having lots of fun just dropping music episodes every once in a while. And kind of thought it was cool that those are some of the most popular episodes. So I went through and did a big purge, deleted what I thought was all of the music-only episodes where I didn't talk, or I talked so little that it didn't qualify. And that was forever ago. That was quite some time ago. I don't remember the exact amount of time, but it feels like at least a year and a half ago or so. Okay, so just this week, like I was saying, I've spun out the other segments, and I have a couple of more segments. I haven't spun out the Mr. Zeppo's totally irrelevant media review episodes yet. Anyway, so I'm stuck here. I'm waiting to hear back. This morning, I got a message from the human chat assistant. I had to ask them if they were an AI chatbot or human at the very beginning of the conversation, and they assured me they were humans. But they are apparently, quote, currently reviewing the material and will let me know soon as to an answer regarding the episode's recovery. Unless, and this is entirely possible, unless 1 or 2 lingering just music episodes had somehow survived that purge and were part of it, and were also mysteriously labeled GMT, or the acronym for Good Morning Trumptopia, and I somehow accidentally failed to notice that as I moved these episodes into the new show container, to use their technical language, I can't imagine why the entire show got disappeared. So for those of you who are old school listeners, I humbly ask, if you've got a moment, head on over to Sprecher.com. Find their contact information, find an email that you can contact them at, or open up their help chat thingy and ask them, please, kindly, to bring back Good Morning Trumptopia. If just a handful of you guys do that, it might help the cause. At any rate, I will soldier on and continue bringing you episodes entitled Good Morning Trumptopia, and I will continue to bring you episodes with our original literary fictional DJ Zed Muzak. Speaking of which, here's a little track entitled Emergent Patterns Discordantly Dancing. I hope you enjoy it. I'll be back in just a second to continue talking about the current craziness surrounding Trump and his ever-increasing legal troubles. If you're digging on this track, if you appreciate the efforts DJ Zed goes through to create imaginary, literary, fictional, robot rock music from another dimension, then please support our efforts by clicking on through to solo.to/Mr. Zeppo and finding the SoundCloud link on that collection of content creation projects. There you can listen to DJ Zed unadulteratedly without me talking through the music. Okay, so as the rest of this track plays out, we'll keep talking, as I want to make sure that I use music in accordance with terms and regulations as proposed here on Spreaker.com. Alright, so friends, Trump just lost a massive legal case against him. One which he has successfully brushed off for years. This is just one of his many accusers, accusing him of sexual misconduct. And those of you who have had conversations with Trump supporters during this entire process, almost 7 years now of Trumptopian ascendancy, might be familiar with the refrain that all of these accusers are liars, and the evidence is they've all backed off previous cases. Now, the thing that they always neglect when making that argument is that Trump is infamously well known for intimidating witnesses. In fact, one of the other areas that he is sitting in boiling hot water about is witness tampering, right? Trying to intimidate those who might go before a jury or a committee, etc., etc. He's been using his social media to intimidate and bully those who would speak out against him, and it's crazy. But in this particular instance, Trump has been found guilty. He is now an individual who's been found guilty of sexual misconduct in a court of law based on evidence and eyewitness testimony. So, with every one of these twists and turns, the question has been, will this be the issue that breaks the camel's back, proverbially, that shakes people free from the hypnotic trance that they seem to be caught up in? And the craziest part of this entire saga has been how many examples of his corruption, how many examples of his toxicity, how many examples of his inappropriate behavior, how many examples of his political shenanigans his supporters are willing to not only tolerate, but bend over backwards to rationalize, dismiss, and even excuse and defend. But this is truly beyond the pale. I'm left wondering how on earth his voters are going to explain to their daughters that they chose to continue to support a man who is clearly a man who clearly has problematic issues treating women with respect. As if the fact that he's cheated on every single one of the women he's married wasn't enough to make him, to disqualify him as the leader of the quote-unquote family values party. The truly frightening thought is that a certain percentage of his voters are too deep to extricate themselves from all of this. They're too tightly associated, too personally identified with this man and his projections to step back far enough to go, oh wow, he really is unfit for office. He really is unworthy of my loyalty. But hopefully, this gets to enough people that they're like, I can't anymore, right? It's a difficult challenge. Now, many of them are caught up in believing the idea that all of this is truly a witch hunt. And if anything, we know about belief, it is that the deeper you cling to a belief, the harder you demand a belief to be true, the harder it is to allow yourself to realize that it might not be. That's the problem with belief. But there's still, there's rays of hope. There's silver linings here, I suppose. And that's that this most recent incident is just, what am I trying to say? It's not the tip of an iceberg, but it's just one of many more legal cases that will provide the opportunity for his supporters to take a step back and go, why am I supporting him? And that's, a lot of Trump supporters insist that I hate him. And it's the furthest thing from the truth. I don't hate anybody. I am outraged, but that's different, right? I am outraged that he has gotten away with fooling so many people. I'm also sort of not surprised for all the reasons that it isn't really surprising. When you merge politics and religion, crazy things happen, yo. That's why this country was founded on a separation of church and state. But we can do a whole other episode about that. In fact, there's plenty of pins on the corkboard about that subject. And hopefully, fingers crossed, some of those pins are from Good Morning Trumptopia episodes, which are currently missing from my library. But fingers crossed they will be reinstated and made available again shortly. There is, of course, there is some sense, right, in what they say, because plenty of people, it's easy to imagine that Trump really is some sort of victim. But the hardest pill to swallow about Trump is that the only person undermining Trump is Trump himself. One of the questions I had very early on in the process, back when he was still running for office, was whether or not he was trying to lose. Because he seemed to be going out of his way to do and say things that in a sane world would have disqualified him. It's still one of the things that perplexes me about how and why anybody can choose to support this man. Now, as much as it may be a mystery to me, I can't just turn around and choose to hate them. That achieves nothing, right? I mean, that's what they're all about. It's the irony when a Trump supporter accuses a Trump critic of being full of hate, when it is the extreme members of the Trump base that are most busy spewing hate at others. When Trump supporters call Trump the most attacked and the most abused president in history, it's like they all have amnesia and they've forgotten the obscene amount of toxic waste, hate-riddled content they all delighted in spewing and reposting and sharing about Obama, the first African-American president in the United States. Mind you, I was not a blind Obama supporter. I did defend him against those who were obviously hating on him purely for racial reasons, because racism is racism, no matter how politely you disguise it. And that's one of the big tough pills to swallow about this country, is that it's riddled with bigots and racists of all levels and all kinds of degrees. But as we slowly approach the absurdly extended 2024 election cycle, and this is the early, and like, how early did he announce? That was crazy how early he announced for 2024. But it also makes perfect sense. He was trying to get out ahead of the legal cases developing against him, right? And I asked this very early on, in fact, when he announced for 2024, it seems like he's going to try to pull a Netanyahu. Netanyahu, for those of you who may or may not be aware, successfully ran for his re-election while under indictment, and is apparently still under indictment even as he occupies office. That's a whole other issue there. We can do a whole special series about the problems in the Middle East and the endless conflict there. But of course, that's a thorny briar bush in and of itself, right? Because either side has its reasons. Both sides have their reasons for their violent choices, and both sides have their rationalizations. And it's a sensitive, thorny issue to get into. Needless to say, there's a lot to discuss there. But let's reel it all back in, friends. Not only has he lost this case, but there are several more cases developing that do not look good for Donald Trump. And it's anyone's guess whether or not an indictment that results in an arrest will come through and be processed between now and the election in 2024. It's going to make this election the craziest roller coaster ride, I think, in American political history in recent years. In living memory, let's put it. And I'm not one to make predictions. I can't predict whether or not he's going to show up today, but I will giggle deliriously if he bails on this CNN town hall. Only because, like, it would be consistent with his cowardice. You know, for a guy who is proclaimed to be the paradigm of alpha male masculinity, it is adorable how cowardly he behaves. And no matter what his supporters say, and no matter what he says, he was not barred from testifying in this case. He left the country, which sounded absurd to me, just like not exactly the best foot forward there. And then whilst he was out of the country, the case was postponed an X amount of time in order to allow him the opportunity to come back. Never showed. Instead, he just played his videotape deposition, which did not help his case. He literally acknowledges that he actually said the thing in the leaked audio tape, which had forever been dismissed as a fake or a hoax or a lie or somehow, taken out of context. He acknowledges not only that he said it, but that he thinks it's somehow true. He literally said that it's, for better or worse, the truth. Just look over the last 1,000,000 years, he said, which, of course, is the most absurd, nonsensical thing to say about something like that because, there have not been sexual predator, celebrity, rock star politicians for 1,000,000 years. That literally makes zero sense. And, of course, he's being hyperbolic, whatever. There's just the growing amount of legal cases against him are amazing. But my question is, okay, so there's the case against him in Georgia, right? And there's been a big, huge development there. I think about 8 of the legitimately fake electors involved in the Georgia case have taken immunity deals for their participation and testimony. And as I said back in the day, and I wish I could point to the episode that I said this in, the problem with that scenario was that the entire plan was clearly orchestrated from within the White House. There's technically nothing preventing individual state legislators and members of the Electoral College from preparing an alternate slate, quote unquote. What makes it problematic is that the directive to create these alternate slates of electors came from within the White House and was organized under false pretenses. They were completely invalid. It was a boilerplate job. Memos were issued to all of the states that organized fake electors. Boilerplate documents were provided. Okay? And that is something beyond the sort of loopholes of the law. So now that these 8 electors have taken immunity deals, that does not help, I don't think, in the long run, and will not. I don't think that case is going to turn out well. And there's so many more. I don't even have time to get into them, especially since I'm trying to keep episodes shorter and tighter and quicker these days. But please stay tuned. Stay tuned as hopefully all of the currently disappeared and missing episodes of Good Morning Trumptopia will, with any luck, be restored in the coming days. And the show will be spun off into its own show container, as they call it on Sprecher.com. And I will be coming back at you a little bit more often, a little bit more daily, a little bit less almost, as I like to say. Especially now as the craziness of the 2024 election really starts to heat up. As always, friends, thank you for tuning in from wherever you tune in from. This episode is listened to in 22 countries around the world or more. It fluctuates. Sometimes it's 25, sometimes it's 20. But I am deeply grateful to everyone who tunes in and listens. And if you appreciate what we do here on Good Morning Trumptopia, a special segment of the Almost Daily ZenCast, I humbly implore you, take 5 minutes out of your day, go to Sprecher.com, find the support contact information, and write a little fan email asking them to please, please, please bring back Good Morning Trumptopia. Thank you very much, friends. For now, this is all I got to say. Stay tuned for more. Until next time, may peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart. Remember, folks, violence is not the way. Violence will not solve the political problems that we have created for ourselves. So don't buy into any political ideologue suggesting violence.
And that is the latest madness from behind the orange wall. Thank you for listening to GMT, a special segment of the Almost Daily ZenCast. Stay woke, Trumptopia. Stay woke.
That ending always makes me giggle. It's irony, folks. It's irony. And I've said plenty I've got to say about wokeness. Pins on the corkboard. Stay tuned, though. We're going to have to do a whole review episode of that whole issue. Peace out, folks.